so proud of America.
I'm Tommy Thomas. This is year 0. Today, I have Courtenay Turner on the podcast. Courtenay Turner is so much fun to talk to. We push and pull against each other's ideas and kind of bang away at things. And it's a lot of fun. I don't know. It's a lot of fun to just kind of just that give and take, and done with a smile on our face and all in good fun, just to go back and forth. But we talk about ESG and the state of the world and where we're heading, psychology. We get into the fear of success, the fear of failure, the fear of life, the fear of death, love, fear in general, and all that good jazz, and the way that all these things interact with each other in a person's life, and how we should take on parallel societies and all that. I mean, we really kind of worked some ideas out here. None of them were fleshed out completely, but it was a lot of fun, man. It was a really fun show to record, because we just really grinded our gears against each other and just tried to figure out what was going on and what the best way to address these problems. So I think it's something y'all will really enjoy. RyanBunting.com for all of your graphic design needs. Go to RyanBunting.com. Ryan Bunting is a great libertarian and a great anarcho-capitalist. He's also a pretty decent graphic designer. I heard he does some other online internet administrative work too, but I don't know if I would trust him with that. But go to RyanBunting.com for all of your graphic design needs. Find out if his administrative work meets your standards. Maybe give him a try. Maybe not. It's all up to you. RyanBunting.com. The Libertarian Institute is where you will find this podcast, as you know, and you will find Liberty Weekly, Conflicts of Interest, Don't Tread on Anyone with Keith Knight, and The Scott Horton Show. We also have some great writers. I think Will Porter's there, Connor Freeman, and Kim Robinson. You get some Jim Bovard and many others there at the libertarianinstitute.org. So go over to the Libertarian Institute and check out the libertarianinstitute.org. We have all the stories you need. Thank you, Tom Burton, for the music. Enjoy the show. I am here with Miss Courtenay Turner. How you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm Southern. I have to call you Miss. Every time I see you now, I just have to call you Miss.
Okay. You can call me Miss.
Are you a Mrs.? Are you married?
I am not a Mrs.
Okay. So Miss works. Miss Courtenay Turner. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll just,
yeah.
Either way. I just got to pay respect to the women around me. Like, make sure you understand. I'm coming at you from a very respectful point of view. Even though I'm a long hair, big beard redneck that looks like I'm about to rape something, I'm not going to do anything.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, I'm just stupid. That's my only excuse. I'm just stupid.
Well, as we were just saying, I was saying that I have a more tolerance for stupidity than I do for liars. So.
Well, that's why I used it as an excuse. I remember that.
Yeah.
It was 2 seconds ago.
There we go. So apparently you're not that stupid then.
All right.
You kind of just proved your point.
I wanted to have you on, and I want to talk about get into ESG. I'm sure you've done as much research on this as I have. And I know you're, with Davos just ending and Bilderberg just passing by, there's all kinds of things to talk about. But I think
so much.
I just don't. I see the connection as being ESG. incorrect on that. I think that's where the connecting ties are. I think that's how they're pulling everything together. That's the thread they're using.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think it's definitely the thread that they're using. But ESG is just a big hoax. Honestly, everything that it purports to be is essentially a lie. So
yeah, for sure. But I think I don't know if it's a hoax. I don't know if hoax is the right word. I think it's a tool.
It is a tool.
You see what I'm saying? I think it's a propaganda tool that they utilize to move people in certain directions. Like you've read Charles Galton Darwin, The Next Million Years. I know you've read that.
Yeah, really long time ago.
But there's a section in the book where he's talking about people are animals and that you can't force them to act. So what you do is you have to create an atmosphere in which they react to the environment around them. So in order to get people to move, you have to move society in a specific way. But in order to move society in a specific way,
essentially the Hegelian dialectic. I mean, it's just another iteration of that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're creating an environment for people to move in a specific direction. You're only giving them one direction to move in. So and so whenever I think about ESG, I think that's what they're doing. Like that's what I see. That's the way I visualize it. They're taking what they call as tragedies or emergencies, and they're publicizing them, they're politicizing them in order to get people to move towards that a specific direction, and like kind of funneling everybody in a specific corral. And that's kind of what I see ESG as.
Which is essentially, right? That is the Hegelian dialectic, right? There's the
I mean, yeah, as far as I've read, but I'm not going to sit here and act like I've read a bunch of Hegel or something like that, because I haven't.
I was a philosophy major. I actually did read a lot of Hegel.
Yeah, I didn't. I kind of like, I've glimpsed at it, and like I've heard people say Hegelian dialectic, and I'm like, what are they talking about? So I look at it, and I'm like, okay.
Sure. But I mean, that's really what you can distill it down to. It is the crisis reaction synthesis, right? So, but I actually just did a post today about, the Club of Rome, the limits to growth, which is what the E in ESG is predicated upon, actually, and how, people know the slogan, like never let a crisis go to waste. But the part that a lot of people don't acknowledge is they typically create the crisis. Yeah. A lot of these crises are manufactured. And with the Club of Rome, which was in 1971, they wrote The Limits to Growth. And it's all about all the environmental crises that they're talking about now, essentially that we need to reduce, that we have this climate crisis, they need to reduce carbon, and essentially us, because we're the carbon. So the document, it was called Limits to Growth. So it was all about population. What?
I said I'm made of water, not carbon.
Well, we expel carbon dioxide.
Don't tell them
that. Carbon is literally the life molecule. Like anybody who's speaking,
it is.
Anybody who's speaking fifth grade
that's
science,
why it's so ridiculous that the way that they demonize it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, right, but exactly. But this is the point that was interesting. So then, later in 20 years later, in 1991. They did another document, and they basically admitted that they knew that, nobody was going to buy this narrative. I mean, it was a bunch of hogwash. And so they had to, but they knew that if they could get a bunch of people to corral against a common enemy, that they could get people on board, even though it was all a farce, essentially. Yeah. And they decided the enemy of humanity was man. They literally decided that, and they admitted it in this next document in 1991. So that's essentially what they do. So, and I think the part that a lot of people don't typically acknowledge is that it's not just usurpation of these crises in order to funnel towards a teleological end. It is also that they manufacture these crises in order to then come in with and force a reaction to it. And then they can swoop in with their synthesis, which is essentially their solution, which also often perpetuates the Hegelian dialectic, because that solution usually creates some other major crises. And then we go round and round, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's, if you really watch the way that the world goes, like just even your local government, the way that it reacts and interacts with society, it's not hard to imagine that they would be creating some of these crises in order to move forward their political gains and their power. It's very easy to see that.
Sure. Yeah, that document was called The First Global Revolution. Very fitting name.
I've heard of it. I haven't read that one yet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I told you before, I'm reading Parag Khanna right now. That's got me really busy right now. But
yeah, I haven't. You're gonna have to send me the name again, because I was actually looking like the other day. I was like, there was somebody I was supposed to look up, and
you just message me. You can message me whenever you want. I'll message you back.
Will do.
I'm not gonna ignore you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. I actually want as many people as possible to read Parag Khanna, but I do understand that, a lot of us are trying to read so many different things, and we're catching on. There's so much information out there. It's very hard to keep up with. So it's
information, and that's by design. Information overload, for
right?
Sure.
And it's one of the things that why I've tried to focus so much on ESG is because no one else is really focused on it. No one else is honed in on it and tried to break down like what they're saying about it, what they're trying to do with it, like what it's meant for. And the way I see it, it is such a dangerous component of the next phase, because that is the way they move you. That is the way they move everybody. And without it, if you can like kind of erase it from the dialogue, if you can pull it out of the meme, kind of the mimetic ideal of society, then you might have a chance to fight back. But I don't know if you can fight back while it's still there.
So I think I actually think you can. I think that people need to opt out. So really, it has a strong hold over corporations. And that's why it's so powerful, because we are in the middle of a corporate takeover. This is a fascist takeover. I think that that's also something that people need to really hone in on, because, again, this is the Hegelian dialectic. They use the left and right against each other in order to merge this synthesis. And this is essentially the synthesis, this fascist. It's essentially a fascist AI, transhumanistic, feudalistic takeover, but they're using the corporations to seize this control and power. And the corporations all have to go in lockstep with this ESG. Their ESG rating is what enables them to climb the ranks as a corporation. So I think that what people need to do is opt out. People just need to, and individuals can do this, and especially smaller companies can do this, because they don't need to be, what they're doing is they want to get the higher rating, essentially, so they can, get benefits.
There is an issue with this, and I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily, but I do want to you probably know this. I just kind of a reminder, I think. Would be that they have put ESG scores on 401k dashboards.
Yeah, I know.
And so you're talking about regular average individual citizens that are being scored as investors. And so these people, like, let's say my parents, for instance, right? They're in their 60s. They've been dumping money into their 401k for 40 years. And now if they pull that money out, they suffer a severe penalty. So, and so there is the reality that there are people that are seeing this and they're saying, wow, I don't want to deal with this, but how do I maneuver a 401k situation?
Right. I'm not saying that any of this is easy, but just
none of it's going to be easy. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I want to make sure that we are addressing the fact that there are going to be difficulties and hardships that go along.
There's sacrifices. There's sacrifices. So
absolutely.
I think that the alternative is so grave that it's worth taking those sacrifices. That's kind of how I see it. And, the example I would use is like 2 years ago when everybody was told to wear a mask and people, would opt in because they wanted to, or now when they're being coerced into take shots, they want to keep their job. And I get that. And I'm not undermining anybody who makes that choice or who thinks that, that is the better path for them. Mm. But the reality is, if everybody had just stopped, in the very beginning with the masks and said, no, I'm not doing this, they couldn't have kept going.
Right.
So people need to, at some point, practice civil disobedience and just say no, opt out of the system. And I think alternative systems need to be created, which I think they are being created. People are doing that. But that is really the solution. People need to, good, decent people who value individualism need to be opting out of these ESG nonsense. And I mean, I understand why you say it's not really a hoax, it's a tool, but to me, it is a hoax because everything they claim about the ESG is a lie. The environmental.
It's all a lie. I'm not arguing with that at all.
Nothing about it is benefiting me.
I understand why you call it a hoax. The reason I don't call it a hoax is because it is being utilized in order to manipulate people.
It's absolutely, and that's why I like to call it a hoax, because I want people to understand that this is it's a tool of manipulation. And
that's why I call it a tool. See, it's a tool of manipulation. That's why I call it a tool.
But I really want people to understand that it's not founded in any merit.
There's no reality.
You go through through the F, the social, and essentially all the social justice warrior nonsense. Like that does not help people. It actually hurts people, and it usually hurts the very people that it purports to help. And then the governance is just essentially like, more commissars and control mechanisms and more bribery.
And it's making sure that you have the right amount of like diversity on the board of directors.
Well, that's the social. Yeah.
No, that's under the governance. They've moved that to the governance. They've moved. Yeah. And they've added health to the social. After COVID, they put health under social, and they had to move stuff under governance so that to make it look more balanced. You can go to I have a spreadsheet saved on my phone. I'd have to find it. I don't remember who published it, but they put all that stuff and they got it all in bullet points. It's like, this falls under environmental. They've just moved stuff all, and you're like, this is all just blah. This is just like diarrhea of the mouth. Most of it. It doesn't even make sense. Did you see that they were starting to utilize ESG scores? All right, so corporations are starting to rank states now. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, now it depends now where you live and how compliant your state government is to the corporations. Depends on whether or not a corporation will operate within your state. I'm like, what?
Well,
I mean,
I actually don't necessarily mind that, because I would prefer to be in a state with less of the big corporations, right?
I would too, but it just seems what keeps popping into my head is the savages from Brave New World.
Yeah,
that's all I can think of. It's like there are going to be people connected. There are going to be people connected to the network, and then there were going to be the savages. It's just like, if you live in Texas or Florida, you're just going to be bass awkward hillbilly. Oh well, yeah, I guess I got to marry my sister. But so it's just wild. It's just insane. they're painting us into a corner to where it's like it's.
Well, I think that was quite a bit of foreshadowing. I mean, the
definitely.
Were very connected to the secret societies. They knew the plans. You know?
But didn't even say it whenever he wrote Brave New World Revisited. He even said this is like much more of a blueprint of what you're going to see than 1984 ever would be. You know, basically is what he's saying. So it's not a complete shock, but at the same time, it's kind of like how fast it's happened. I think that's what gets people like me. I
don't think it's been fast at all.
Oh,
I think it's becoming a lot. No, it has not been fast. These plans have been laid out for well over 100 years. It's becoming much more transparent now because things are ramping up. They're getting closer to their, global takeover, the New World Order. But in no way has any of this been fast. I mean,
I think
years to me
what
is not
I'm
very
saying,
fast.
I think what I'm saying is the momentum at which they're moving right now is they've
moved up. So Agenda 30 has now been moved up to Agenda 27.
Right.
Yeah. So they are ramping up.
There's something about the way things are progressing that is overwhelming.
I think they feel threatened. I think they did not expect so many people to wake up. I don't think they expected so many people to resist. They're lying about the numbers of people who have, complied with these shots. They're lying about it.
Right.
It is way less people than they're claiming. And I think that they feel like they need to ramp up because they think that they're failing. And so that's their compensation. They're actually ramping things up faster.
Where is this heading? Like, what are we looking at?
Where is it? It's heading towards a transhumanistic, feudalistic AI Hyborg mind takeover. I mean,
right. But how do you get from, all right, so this might sound kind of ridiculous to you, but I want to draw this out because I think people need to hear how this works.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's take this step by step because you and I have read a bunch of stuff. Not everybody reads the stuff that you and I read, so we have to remember that.
All okay. Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. So we got this weird sexuality stuff going on with our kids right now, right? Like they're being thrown into drag queen story hour. There's all this this transsexual stuff that's happening. All right. So how does the trans movement today lead to the trans movement of tomorrow? Right. How do you go from transsexual to transhuman?
I think
it's very connected.
It is very connected. So one is that it's also a depopulation agenda. And
I always call it a eugenics movement.
It is a eugenics movement. It is, and people need to understand that it's. And I think this is kind of like a lot of people want it, like libertarians want to be like, oh, people can do whatever they want, live and let live. And that's all well and good. And I really don't care what people do personally. But this movement that's being pushed, there is a reality.
It's an ideology. There's an ideology behind it. And that's what you're fighting.
Yeah, there is an ideology behind it. But it's not just that. It's like, the reality is that these trans people are not, they can't procreate, so that's a.
So you're saying we should put them all on an island by themselves?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Can we take all the gays and the trans and put them all on an island by themselves and see which society survives?
Right. Well, as a beta test, sure. But I don't think you need to do that. I mean, we know that, two men, by themselves, barring any modern science or whatnot, they can't make a child. That's just science, no matter what they want to say. That's just facts. So the fact that they're pushing this so hard, people do need to understand it is part of the depopulation agenda. Then the other part of it is dehumanization, right? Because that's part of being human is this idea that we are man, woman, right? That's part of the whole species. So this idea that you can just pick whatever, non-binary, I don't know how many genders there are on right now, but this idea that you can just basically make things up and identify as whatever you want to identify is a way of dehumanizing us. And then there is, of course, also, the group that's foisting all of this. There is a lot of occult ideology in this, and they do worship the hermaphrodite type. That if you read the Luciferian texts, they talk about that. So that's something that they very much hold up. So I think there's a lot of pieces at play, but it's definitely tied to the depopulation eugenics movement. And it is definitely part of the transhuman movement because it is the way of dehumanizing us and being able to then, so you reduce the population and then you seize control, because a lot of these people also really, unfortunately, because they're pushing this so young, a lot of them are mentally unstable and therefore they're much more susceptible to any kind of, control measures and trauma-based mind control that they implement and execute.
What's the next step though? So we're dealing with the transgender movement right now, and this weird ideology where it's forcing sexuality on the kids. How does it get from point A, the transgenderism, to transhumanism at point F? I get where you're coming about. What I'm trying to do is
you're asking me to spell it out.
Yes, ma'am. For the listeners, because I can kind of see the way it works. I want to make sure that, number one, I'm looking at it correctly, and number two, the listeners are getting the information.
So we have a lot of people who will unfortunately either be killed off in this process or who will not be able to procreate. So it is a way of limiting the population, and then it is also a way of introducing this notion that we are not that we can be bionic, right? So they do these, what they call them augmenting humanity. And there's actually a British document, augmenting, which is all about transhumanism. It's a white paper document, but they do a lot of these things under the guise of helping people, right? We're helping those that feel trapped in the wrong body, or we're going to implant chips in people's brains who are depressed, and this is going to help them with their depression or with their Alzheimer's or, cancer. They come up with all these things, right? So now they're
Neuralink.
Neuralink, exactly. So now they're doing these surgeries from a very young age that are completely altering children under, and adults too, but they're pushing this on children and under the guise that it's somehow going to help them, which paves the way for people to have other kinds of procedures like Neuralink and to opt into that. Well, why wouldn't I want to have my brain augmented and it's going to help me with my depression, Alzheimer's, live longer, whatever it is they decide they're going to tell us. But those are some of the things they've already laid out. And then
you have, on top of all this, you have CRISPR where you can.
Yeah, CRISPR's been around for a while.
In there, the ability with CRISPR, correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. There's the ability to expel and insert DNA into an unborn child.
Yeah. So with CRISPR, they've couched it in you can choose the sex of
color
your child,
of their hair, the color of their eyes, how tall they're going to be. So if you want someone who's 6'4", blonde hair, blue eyes, not an Aryan, of course, but
right. Then you can edit their genes.
Right.
Yeah.
And CRISPR will not replace us. So.
Yep.
Yeah. That was a bad joke. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I do. Yeah. I tell bad jokes until everybody laughs. So this All right. So I was talking to this guy about ESG earlier, and he's an advocate. And here's what he told me. I said, look, man, I've been researching this stuff since 2019. I know what ESG is. You're not going to fool me. Okay. And he said, well, technology's changed since 2019. What the hell does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything?
ESG is an agenda. It is not a technology. And, and I made that clear, and he shut up. So the way I look at it, this guy is the treasurer of the Libertarian Party. All right. He was promoted by the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus, which I actually have a lot in common with, even though I'm not part of them.
Okay. And
I'm looking at this and I'm like, these people have infiltrated everything.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Whether some of them might even be useful idiots, but they're everywhere.
Yeah.
What do we do?
I think we create parallel systems. That's really what I think we do. I think that the people who are awake and aware of what's happening need to really stand strong and opt out. People need.
So in kind of that vein, let's touch on that for just a second. Mm-hmm. Creating a parallel system. So we have kind of I'd say more conservative kind of tech guy out there, Vivek. I can't remember how to say his last name.
Okay.
His first name's Vivek something or other. He created a company called Strive, right?
Strive?
Strive. STRIVE. Okay. So the idea was to create a money management firm that could compete with BlackRock and did not utilize ESG as a standard, right?
Great. Okay.
So, yeah, I kind of feel the same way. But I also kind of feel like, like there's the whole story about Prometheus, right? He was a Titan that gave fire to humanity. And all the other Titans hated him. But he was still a Titan. And I'm like, can you trust the guy? Right? So that's kind of the way I look at like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and this Vivek guy. It's kind of like,
well, yeah, I mean, they're not trustworthy.
Right. But at the same, they're Titans, but all the other Titans hate them. So do I trust them temporarily because they happen to be on the right side of the other Titans just temporarily? But
they're not on the right side.
Well, they are. I mean, I'm saying if you're creating a money management firm that is not utilizing ESG, you are on the right side of ESG. Like, I'm not saying you're on the right side of history completely, but you're on the right side of ESG. So do I trust you long enough to get
literally involved in every single...
I'm just talking about all of them as a whole, because they're all working together. All these guys are working together. Like, I'm not pretending.
Every single technology that is needed to voice the fourth industrial revolution, Elon Musk is involved in. Literally every single one.
Except for all the ones that they're pushing down our throats.
No, he's involved in every single one.
He's not for ESG. And I don't want to argue about Elon Musk because I really don't trust the guy at all. My point is...
ESG is not a technology. Every technology. He's involved in Neuralink. He was partnered with Charles Lieber, who created the neural lace. Yeah, but okay. He's got CureVac, which is the mRNA technology company. He's involved in the Hydra Collider for CERN.
Okay,
I mean, literally every one of their technologies.
Hold on for 1 second. Yeah. Let me explain to you what I'm saying here. This Vivek, I don't know how to say his last name. It's something like that. I don't know how to say his last name. It starts with an A. All right. So it's him, Peter Thiel, and Elon Musk have started this company, Strive, that is combating BlackRock through money management firm not using ESG. Right?
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like they're on the right side of this one argument. Do I hang with them just for this segmented part of time? Or do I try to create my own money management firm with my $5,000 I got back back there. Like it's you can't compete. Like the problem is that whenever you're trying to create parallel societies, here's an issue you're going to run into anytime you're trying to create a parallel society. And this is something I figured out when I was studying agorism, like really like hardcore. You need elites. You need elites. That's you have to have the funding. You have to have that backing from elites. Where do you get the elite?
You're cutting out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Cut it out. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're cutting out, so I'm not hearing you.
I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Why am I cutting out?
There you are. You're back. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. You're back.
That was weird. All right. So what I'm saying is, like, whenever it comes to the situation where you're dealing with this, with fighting this battle, you need elites on your side. Where do you get these elites from? And the best thing I think you can do,
I
was just going to say, the best thing I think you can do is find those that are sympathetic to you. Right, to the average person, which is kind of like the story of Prometheus, was the sympathetic titan that delivered fire for the betterment of mankind. So I don't know. You can take that whichever direction you want to take it in, but I think it's kind of a hard thing to answer.
Mm-hmm. I don't see it that way. So to me, when you're looking at creating a competitor, that you'd need an elite to create a competitor. I'm not talking about creating a competitor. I'm actually talking about opting out of the system and creating parallel systems. So parallel system would be more like communities, like the Amish would be an example. Right? They're completely outside the system.
Yeah, like tribes.
Yeah, really, that's I think really more what I'd be suggesting. I think at this point that the elites are not on our side. It's not like find an elite who's on our side. I think that's the problem is people keep looking for some sort of a savior.
I'm not trying to find elite. I'm talking about creating them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if you create a parallel system, there could be another elite who's outside that system. That could happen.
But you got to find somebody who's impressive. That's one of the problems that we have with our elites today. They're not impressive. One of the problems we have with our elites today is they're not impressive at all.
They're all garbled. I'm not hearing you.
Yeah. I don't understand why this happened. Why am I having internet problems? I never have internet problems. Suddenly, in the middle of talking to Miss Courtenay Turner, I'm having internet issues. No, now you're frozen. Now she's frozen. What the hell just happened? I think I lost her. Well, folks, I'm not sure if she's coming back. I was hoping we would complete this podcast, but I'm not sure. I've never had this happen before, or not in quite a while. So I think the point is, though, that she's getting at, which I kind of agree. I agree with for the most part, is to create like intentional communities, which is kind of what she's talking about. I think what I'm talking about is in order to take away the power from the people that are trying to rule over us. Within these intentional communities, you're going to have to create elites that would be able to operate against power for power. Oh, look, here she comes. I don't know what happened there, but here she is. So, hello.
Well, that was very strange.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, you said I'm garbled, and then I was checking my connection, and then you froze, and within a couple of seconds, you were gone. And I was like, Well, I guess it wasn't me this time. So
I guess it was me. It was just so weird. I'm on knee.
yeah, you're frozen again, actually. And it's not me.
All right. Well, hopefully it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, you froze again right there. So hopefully we can cruise through this. So I was just kind of like talking to myself at the moment because I was trying to think about what you're saying. I'm trying to like contemplate what I'm saying here. So so you're advocating intentional communities. So I'm actually like very good with that. I think we're talking about two different things. Okay. So I'm not talking about how to organize yourselves. I'm talking about how to get the power out of the hands of these psychopaths that are in power. And this is what I think
that is how you do it.
And this is what I was saying whenever we got disconnected. I was like, I'm not against elites. I just want them to be impressive. Right. So, and we haven't seen that in a long time. So,
well, I'm not really a fan of the elites because there don't seem to be any good ones. They all seem to be in lockstep with the same plan.
Well, and that's why I think we have to create.
And I do think that's by design. So.
Yeah. I really believe we have to create our own. We have to find those people in our rank and file that we can promote to that position. Problem is they need the money to back them.
It needs to be outside the system. That's the problem because that system you have to play by their rules.
Oh, I'm not talking about playing within the system.
Elites.
No, I'm talking about standing up against the system. You have to have that. It's like, all right, think about like. Let's the Bolshevik Revolution, right? So
which was funded, right?
Right, but that's my point. That's my point. You had elites funding the revolutionaries. You had to have that,
but it was the same people funding both sides.
Well, it was the same family. I don't know about the same people.
Right. It was the same people.
You can have Rothschild versus Rothschild, though, so I'm not going to...
It wasn't Rothschild versus Rothschild. They were all in cahoots. It was all the same...
But what I'm saying is in order for you to exit this system, in order for you to create that parallel society, you have to have the funding, the backing, and you have to be able to stand up against the existing system. Because if not, then you end up with like a Randy Weaver situation. You end up with a Waco situation. You end up with these situations that do occur, right? And it doesn't occur every single time. All right. I mean, I'm sure we can come up with some instances where it hadn't occurred, but you have to be able to protect yourself from that situation. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that it's guaranteed that you're going to get Waco'd. I'm not saying it's guaranteed you're going to get Randy Weavered, but you have to have the backing, some sort of something going for you and protecting you from that frontal assault. And I think that's where people really get lost and kind of lose their nerve to move forward on creating parallel societies because they don't feel like they have any security or safety. And so there's some benefit.
I think it's because they're trying to play in the same system. That's where you and I are having a complete disconnect. I
don't think they're trying to play in the same system at all. I mean, I know plenty of agorists that refuse to involve themselves in creating a parallel society of agorists, right? Because they don't want to draw the attention. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm sorry?
Agorist?
Yeah, agorist. Agorist is like Sam Konkin. All right, so they operate only in the gray market, the black and gray market. They don't operate in the white market. So it's all cash. It's all done under the table, Bitcoin, crypto. It's never, there's no taxes paid, blah, blah, blah. But they're afraid to create societies. They're afraid to create an agorist community because the agorist community operates outside. They don't pay taxes. They don't do any of these things, but they're afraid to put a target on their back because they don't pay taxes. They don't do these things. You see what I'm saying? So there's got to be, you have to take care of the security aspect at some point. At some point you have to deal with that. And so people are, and this is what I'm saying. People.
Once upon a time, there were militias that did that.
Yeah. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be militias today. I'm just saying.
I mean, really, I think if you take out the socialistic, the socialistic policies and socialist economic policies of Switzerland, that actually is a really great model politically, the cantons.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine with it, even with the socialist policies. It's much better than what we deal with in America.
I mean, I'm not. I don't like the socialist.
Well, I'm just talking about in comparison to what we have here.
But if you took that out, then you really that's really is what I'm saying. It becomes these communities. It's localized. So the answer to all of this, I think personally, is decentralization.
Oh no, I'm with you.
Creating like another Titan.
I'm with you on the decentralization. I don't know how to get there.
It starts with people opting out. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, but that's what it starts with. It starts with individuals opting out, saying no more. They should have done it a long time ago. But that's really where we're at.
That just doesn't seem reasonable to me. I'm just being honest. I don't think they'll do it. I just don't. And not saying that it's an irreasonable request on your part. I just don't think people will do it. I think they're too chicken shit. I think they're too big of pussies. I'm sorry. That's
we're headed for really bad times.
Yes, I believe so.
And the future of humanity may cease to be. I mean, that is what we all know.
But they utilize. And this all ties into ESG too, because they utilize those types of propaganda techniques in moving people in specific directions, convincing them that things are supposed to be a certain way. And you get to a situation where people are terrified. I actually told somebody, I was talking to some friends yesterday, and I told them, live free or die should be a threat and not a slogan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that's where we're at. People are so scared to be free anymore that you almost have to threaten them to be liberated.
Well, yeah. I mean, because people are so afraid of dying, they don't live.
It's not even afraid of dying. It's afraid of acting. It's afraid of living.
Well,
they're not really afraid of dying. They're afraid of living. They're afraid of getting out and doing stuff.
When you look at the past 2 years, people have been so afraid of dying that they have not lived.
Yeah, but the point, what I'm saying is the reason they were so afraid of dying these last 2 years is because they had become so afraid of living. They had become so afraid of freedom and creating on their own and inventing and being and expressing themselves, that death became the worst thing that could ever happen to them.
Right.
And it's because they never lived. Anybody who truly lives isn't going to be afraid of death. Right. So,
right. But I think most people don't live because they're so afraid of death. People who have truly faced their mortality live.
See, I think the majority of people that die are completely afraid of life.
The people who
I said most people that die are completely afraid of life.
You mean like people who have died in their life, they were afraid of life?
No, I'm saying most people that die, the majority of people that die are afraid of life. They're afraid to get out. They're afraid to experiment. They're afraid to do.
They're afraid in their life to live, is what you're saying?
Yeah, they were afraid of life and they just die.
Yeah, sure.
They just fade away into nothing. And I think that's sad. And I think that's what we deal with more so than anything. That most people are, they're afraid of death, but I mean, I think that's
what I'm saying is I think that the fear of living stems mostly from the fear of death.
I think the fear of living stems mostly from the fear of responsibility. I think most people are afraid of responsibility. I think people are afraid.
A lot of people are afraid of responsibility.
I think they're afraid to take on responsibility and face things head on. So, ultimately, what we're talking about,
right? But when you really get to the end of that, why? Why are people
I think ultimately what we're talking about?
What are they afraid is going to happen?
Well, I think ultimately what we're talking about is a cultural thing. Well, they're afraid of failure. You know, people don't like to fail. Nobody likes to fail. Even some people are afraid of success. I could say that I'm afraid of success to a certain degree. I freeze myself.
Most people who are afraid of success it's because they're afraid of failure.
Yeah, I'm afraid of failure too.
I'm saying that they're related. So like most people who are actually afraid of success, it's really the fear of failure, because the more success you have, the higher stakes are. And the more likelihood.
No. That has nothing to do with my point of view on the fear of success. The fear of success means that things change. It's the fear of change. It's moving in a different direction. It's seeing my life change. I'm very happy with my life. Why do I want it to change? You see what I'm saying? I'm very comfortable.
Right.
Why do I want it to change? So there are things that I put off or I procrastinate on because I'm afraid it will succeed. Because then that changes
that makes
something.
Sense. Yeah,
that changes part of my life that I have to move.
Yeah.
Then I have to adjust things, and I'm not ready. I don't want to adjust things. I'm an old fart. I like my life, you know. So yeah. So no,
I get that. A lot of people are afraid of change and the unknown. Sure.
Yeah, because I'm very happy with the way my life is. I'm very, very content, and which is a good thing. I'm not complaining about that at all.
You're not, you know? Get it.
And so, but I do struggle with, okay, now I got to take action that I'm not ready to take, because then that means something's going to change, and okay, what's going to change, and how is this going to, and most of the time it's very slight and very minimal, and it doesn't mean anything, but there is that action that has to be taken that, like, okay, I'm not sure I'm ready to do this. I'm not sure, I got to take that step. And so I think people deal with this all the time. There's this that people deal with. And so you end up with ESG, you end up with these things to move you, to push you, right? Yeah. You don't want to move in your own positive direction, so they're trying to nudge you in their direction, right?
Right. And they have created so much fear around it that, people feel morally obligated and shamed or scared. Well, it's one of those, right? Either they feel, shamed into it, coerced into it, or that they have so much fear of the alternative that they feel Yeah.
I think most of it would be shame. I mean, just my perspective, the way I see things. But there absolutely is a aspect of fear when they're running around saying the world's going to end in 12 years. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are terrified, Well,
but I don't even mean it on that kind of a magnitude. I mean, they're just people like you were talking about your parents with the 401k. They're afraid to opt out because they don't want to risk their 401k. They're people who just are afraid of losing their job, right?
Yeah.
It's actually even more banal than like the apocalypse.
No, it's all apocalyptic because it all means like serious changes.
Right. But but a lot of people who are afraid aren't necessarily afraid. That's not what the fear that's driving them. It's not the apocalypse. It's the fear that, they're going to lose their job. The fear that, people are going to think they're a bad person. The fear that they're going to lose their 401k. I mean, these are the things that those types of fears are a lot of what's motivating people to opt into this ESG stuff.
Yeah. And so, no, you reminded me of something. We're talking about fears because fear is a big motivator, man. Like that, of course. It's very strong.
The best propaganda tool.
Yeah. It's super strong. And I remember when my kids were growing up, I used to always tell them, courage is not the absence of fear. It's taking action despite the presence of fear.
Totally. Of course.
Yeah. And it's,
and the opposite of fear is not courage, it's love.
Oh, break that down. That's
yeah. That's really the antidote, because courage is, you're right. Courage is not.
I wouldn't say courage is the opposite of fear, but I would have never thought love would be the answer. So I'm kind of interested on where you get love from. That's interesting.
Yeah, because if you operate from love, you can't really be afraid. It's an antidote. It's an overpowering emotion. Most people are motivated either by their love / desire, right? Or their fear. And so if you have a love, that's going to create such a powerful antidote to fear.
So
that's why, I mean, those are kind of the push pulls. I think that's the push pull for all humanity. I mean, we're always either moving more towards what we love, we desire, we want more of, or away from the things that we fear, we hate. Where
some people act out of anger too. Anger's a big motivator.
Anger's a great motivator. Yeah. Sure. Anger is a great motivator.
I have a question for you, because maybe you can like break down my mindset here. Somebody said the other day, were you nervous before you got married? And I said, I've been married for 7 years and I'm still nervous. So what is that?
What is that? What do you mean?
I'm just joking.
Well, I mean, I think like anything
that's
you care
called
about,
Tommy being retarded. That's what it is.
But I mean, I think anything you care about, there would be some anxiety around it, right? Like if you really have just no kind of, then you really don't care, right? But I think that you'll always have like a sense of, if you're invested in something, you don't want to lose it. Right.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah. I'm just playing with you. I'm just being a smart ass now. So love is the opposite of fear. It wouldn't be a direct opposite. Would you have to have the triangle? Wouldn't you have to fit anger in there somewhere? It would have to be a triangle, wouldn't it?
I don't know that anger has to be in there.
No?
I think anger is separate. I don't see anger as directly related to.
Okay, it could be a subset of the fear, or it could be a subset of love.
Yeah, I mean, it could absolutely be a subset of fear. Or it could also be related to love. I mean,
yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
Most angry with the people we love often. I mean, those are the people we get the most angry with.
Yeah. Nobody can make me as mad as my wife does.
What?
I said nobody can make me as mad as my wife does. Just don't tell her.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. I think that's true for most people. It's the people they're closest to who can make them the most angry.
No, this has gotten interesting, because now we're like breaking down like human emotions.
But I just mean more as like an antidote. I think that when you're coming from a place of love, it's really like, if you're truly operating from that place, it's really hard to let fear be the driver.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
It kind of tends to overpower.
So,
I mean, think about like if your child was hanging off a cliff and you're afraid of heights. You love your child.
We don't have to go there. The parents that were trying to go into the school when the cops weren't letting them in Uvalde. You know, I mean, there was that one mom that was able to scale the fence and get in there and save her 2 boys.
There you go.
So
love overpowered. Yeah.
Right.
Love for children. Yeah,
for sure. One of the things I struggle with whenever I'm talking about these things is and you and I think we talked about this a little bit when we were on with Kyle. How do you? I think I'm always I'm constantly thinking about the people I see in my day-to-day life. And these aren't the people that are listening to podcasts. They're not the people that are reading the books we're reading. And it's not because they're stupid. It's just because they don't have time. They have lives. They have kids. They have families. Sure. They have responsibilities. And so it's like, how do we express this to them? How do we break that kind of defense? I guess defense is the only word.
Sure. No, I think people do have cognitive dissonance. They have defenses. Absolutely. I don't think that, at least for me personally, I don't see it as my job to wake up like, the sheep, the masses who maybe, what I do is I just like to plant seeds for those people. They're in such a different paradigm than where I am currently, that it would take so much, right? Like a lot of the things that you you've read a lot of books, right? So you've laid these foundations, and I'm sure if you go through the years, like your there's been a trajectory, right? Some of the things that you may have thought were plain as day, you've come to learn you have different views on now, right? Your perspective shifts as you evolve, as you grow as a person, but also as you ascertain more information and deeper understanding of, the context of things. So I have respect for that. I know that, for me, just even in the past year, I have changed and shifted my perspective on a lot of things. Absolutely, and, that happens as new information presents itself to me. So I respect that. And I respect that somebody else has, if I've got like a whole basket full of information and they may have like, 3 twigs, then I can't expect them to understand all that's in my basket. Right. So I just will plant little seeds about, things that might be relevant to them, things that might be important to them. And I don't expect them to, to take it. I expect them to let it sit, and maybe it'll grow some fruit over a year, 2 years.
Okay. I think what I'm asking though is we're talking about creating communities. Well, you have to have people for a community. You
create like-minded communities. You don't try and bridge that with the people who are not like-minded. You create like-minded.
But you have to create communities in your locale. You can't create communities virtually. You're not living, we can have
So I agree and I disagree. I mean, yes, see, I think ideally you create them in your physical towns,
right?
Or wherever
it has to be regional. You have to do something regional because, like, you could be in New York, I could be in California, and we could be like-minded, and we can't do anything for each other than offer somebody to talk to about.
Well, I don't think that that's 100% true. I think having remote communities is important as well, because there's a lot of information that can be shared, and honestly, knowledge does give you a lot of power.
Right. So I'm all about the information. I have no issues with that. What I'm saying is
remote communities can really do that. There can be, a lot of power in that. So I don't think that's 100% true.
But in order to create a parallel,
right? I agree. Physical communities, we are ideal. Absolutely. But you can even do companies remote, right? So there's a lot you can do remote. But I agree. Ideally, it's in person, and I would absolutely advocate for creating.
Well, you need that. You need to form that trust bond, that bond of trust, person to person, interpersonal bond of trust, like my neighbor and I may have, or me and a friend may have.
But you don't try and do that with people who are not like-minded. I mean, that's not going to work.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that in a situation like that most people are in, the majority of people around them aren't like-minded. So they either have to move or they have to move other people to them. And that's not feasible for a lot of people. There are people moving to Florida. There are people moving to Texas. There are people moving to New Hampshire. But there are a lot of people that just can't just pick up and go. And I know there's like the Freedom Cell networks and things like this that you can connect with. But I get on Freedom Cells and I look for my region. There's nothing. There's nothing around here. There's not a person around here involved in Freedom Cells near me. I think the closest person is the closest cell to me is like 200 miles away. And I'm like, I'm not driving 200 miles to go deal with these people. So what I'm personally doing is I'm building an insurance policy. So I have my property and I'm creating I'm building out my property to be an insurance policy for my parents and my children. Right. Okay. So if something goes bad in Houston where they live, I'm only 2 hours away. They can get to me and they have food, they have shelter, they have place to go.
Great. Yeah.
So,
great.
So you have to kind of play out the scenario of what your community is in your head, how it works in your head. And you have to be aware of your environment, your surroundings, the people around you, and who it is you can work with. I'm not so interested in creating a tribe or a community as much as I am as reigniting the extended family. I think that's more important. I think that would actually
Well, that's
move
what a community is.
well, right. For some people, but a lot of people aren't anywhere near their extended family. I'm in a different situation than some people. You see what I'm saying? Like, what I'm trying to say is it's different for everybody. So what we
well, it doesn't have to be extended blood family. For some people, it may be. For some people, it won't be. But
when I say family, I think blood. I don't consider friends family. That's just not the way I don't operate like that. So some people do. I don't. I want. Well, I might think, call friends brother or something like that out of respect and love or whatever, camaraderie, but they're not family.
Communities are. That was the intention of a community, is to be an extension of the family. And so some people don't have big extended families. I mean, that's just not a reality for everyone.
Oh, no. I get that. I'm saying my goal, like with what I'm doing, is to grow my extended family, like aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents.
I think that's great. If you're able to do that, you absolutely should.
Right.
And I would encourage anybody who has a family that they can do that with. Absolutely. For sure.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the antidotes to the cultural decline that we're seeing is to strengthen the family. I mean, that's the simplest thing, and the most important. Start with the family.
I even tweeted out today. I think the destruction of the extended family, and I mean blood family, like aunts and uncles, and that all live together, like they did back in the early in the 1800s and stuff. I think the destruction of the extended family was worse than the destruction of the nuclear family. I think it did more damage.
Interesting.
Yeah, because
I think it's all part of the same thing. I mean, they started with that so that they could destroy the nuclear family. They would have a lot less success destroying the nuclear family if they hadn't started by destroying the extended family.
Well, it's much it's much easier to destroy the nuclear family once you separate everybody, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that was just an extension. The
nuclear family, in many ways, was held together by the extended family. So you had
that was my point.
You could take stress off of the parents by aunts getting involved in the raising of children and stuff like that. So I think when I say it was worse, the destruction of the extended family was worse. I think it was what created the hellstorm that we face today is much more so than the nuclear family. I think the nuclear family was very easy once you separated parents and children from the rest of the family. And but as I said, you could never have done it if they didn't destroy the extended family first. It was just part of their agenda. That was just the trajectory. So where do you think things are going? Let's say over the next year, what do you see happening?
Over the next year? I think they're gonna try and roll out some more. I think I think before even November, we're gonna see a lot of turmoil. So I think they want to breed chaos. So I know they tried all these different tactics.
I've actually been fairly surprised things have been as peaceful as they have right now.
Well, they've tried. They just haven't had much success. This is what I'm saying. I do think they feel threatened. They don't think that they're winning because they really did try. I mean, they tried with the Ukraine, and then they tried with the abortion leak, and then they tried with obviously they're going to bring back COVID, and now they tried with this monkeypox, and it's just not taking hold. This whole fear porn that they're really trying to sell really doesn't seem to be not on a mass scale that they would like. It really doesn't seem to be working. I do think they're going to try and bring back some sort of tyrannical measures. They want to get back to the lockdowns. That is their goal. I'm not sure exactly which of these is going to be successful in doing that, but I think that they do want to get back to the lockdowns, of course, so they can do these mail-in ballots. And there is talk that China may invade, and there does seem to be some evidence towards that. I obviously don't know when, and I can't predict that, but there is evidence that that they are making motions. So there's a possibility of that.
Buddy of mine had made a comment. that it's really funny how every time technology gets to a point where it's advancing to such a degree that less workers are needed, there's a world war. Mm-hmm. And then this whole Ukraine thing started, and it was like, wait, what?
Right, because they need to kill off more people so that they can have the machines take control. But if we outnumber them, then it's a lot harder.
I was listening to something the other day. The guy was actually commenting. He was saying, "Oh no, we have all that technology. We have cyborgs that can fight wars.
We do."
And this, that, and the other.
They've admitted that we have that. Yeah, I forgot how many, but it was tens of thousands. Yeah.
He was talking. Oh, it was Joe Rogan. It was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was Kristen Beck, the transgender Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL that's transgender, whatever. Had like 50 Medal of Honors or something like that. I don't remember all the details, but anyway. She or he or whatever you want to call it was talking about the creation of an Iron Man suit for military, and got into the different types of technologies that we have to fight wars. Mm-hmm. And it's like basically saying like, yeah, you never really like the idea of sending men into battle anymore is kind of barbaric and it's unnecessary, and I don't know why they do it anymore. And it was really odd to me because it was like, yeah, but they still do it. And it's like, if it's unnecessary to send men into battle to die, yet they're still sending men into battle to die.
No,
like, well, are they just calling the herd
all along,
like,
right? It's a very efficient way to kill off a lot of people.
Yeah, right. They're just calling the herd at this point.
Well, it served many agendas because it served the eugenics movement because obviously wars lead to, unfortunately, massive deaths. But it also served to just break up the family, right? Because all the men, and it also served to emasculate the society. Because what are you left with? You're left with the women and the children, right? Yeah, it served a lot of purposes. I think people don't really realize just how much. Why it was so important.
In a society may have, let's just say you have 100,000 men in your society,
right?
But there's only a specific percentage of those men that are warriors. And once you get rid of those warriors, you're dumping off a big load of testosterone. That's a lot of testosterone you're dumping out of that society. And so if your women are breeding with everything but the warriors.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right.
You're emasculating the society.
And they knew that.
Yeah.
They knew that.
So,
that was
intentional. So there's definitely that going on. Mm-hmm. Man, I don't know. I'm actually we're in June right now, so
we are.
I'm very shocked that I haven't seen more violence this year. Like, I really am, and not because I think they would have been protesting Biden or whatever, but I just would have thought there would have been something, and it's just surprising to me.
We've had a lot of shootings, so. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know that it's been that peaceful.
Not compared to Ukraine.
Well, we're not in, it's not an all-out kinetic war. No, not on our soil. But.
That's debatable. But no.
It's definitely a war. Without a doubt, it's a war, but it's not that type of kinetic war.
Oh, yeah. I know. I'm being a smartass again. That's what I do. You just have to forgive me.
Okay.
Please just forgive me. I don't know. I was expecting more riots. I was expecting something to pop up before November. And it doesn't really,
we have time. The year is young. Give it time.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see any motivation for it. I don't see any movement.
Well, I hope it stays that way, but I'm not nearly as optimistic as you that it will.
I'm not even optimistic. I find it strange. It actually makes me more nervous that something hasn't happened.
I think they have plans. I do think they have plans, and I think they're waiting till it gets closer.
Well, I wish they would hurry up because I'm tired of waiting. No, I'm playing. No, hopefully they don't. Hopefully
they don't. Hopefully that's wrong.
Do you buy into this whole narrative that the GOP is going to just wipe the floor with the Democrats this November?
It's kind of looking like they will.
It looks like it, but they're saying it so much, it's like,
It does look like they will. I mean, the numbers are definitely, the odds are in the GOP favor, for sure.
Who likes Biden?
Right. But it's not just that. I mean, like, there's several who've resigned. So many, seats have been.
A lot of people retired.
Yeah.
And said they're not going to run again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the numbers just aren't there. So, I mean, I do think it looks that way. But, that's not like super hopeful to me because so many of them are globalist shills anyway.
Oh, yeah. I don't depend on the Republican Party for anything except to disappoint. There are a lot of talk and no action.
It's a lot of them are really just in the tank, they're whether they be compromised or whether they're or it's infiltrated. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And Republicans is not conservative. It's that they're not synonymous. So
no, if they were conservative, they'd be trying to roll back all the gun control bills that have ever been put in place, but they're not. So,
I don't know what part of thou shalt not infringe is so difficult for people. I think
it's shall. Nobody uses that word anymore.
Is that what it is?
I think it just throws everybody off. They're like, "What does that mean?"
Maybe it's thou. Yeah,
that word means that you can't have guns. That's what that word means.
It's ludicrous. Like thou shalt not infringe. It's plain as day.
Plain as day.
So clear.
Period.
That's it.
No comma unless yada yada yada. There's none of this. None of that happened.
So clear.
Period.
That's it. It is so clear. So I don't know where the confusion is for people, but there seems to be.
All right. Well, I think we've kind of bantered along enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to plug?
Yeah. Well, come find me at the Courtenay Turner podcast. I'm everywhere that you can find the podcast. So I'm on Rockfin. Not all of my stuff is on YouTube these days. But I am on there. So definitely come find me and it'll have the links to everything else. So I'm pretty much on all the platforms. So Rockfin, YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey. And then my audios are Podbean, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And you can find me on Twitter at Courtenay Turner. And you can find me on Instagram at Kinetic Quartz.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to stop the recording.
Said you're just a slave. All your good intentions took you to your grave. Your pride is how they killed you. With the flag you wave just like a fool. They promised you a mountain, gifted you a stone. They demanded that you throw it into your neighbor's home and then seize all that they worked for and give it to the throne just like a tool. Well, as we all just stand in line and glorify new ways of being cruel, it seems to me humanity is not something that they're teaching us in school. They dumbs down all around propaganda, their pollution. They set a cage up on the stage, a facade for all solution. They build a wall, block them all from this mental institution. It's insane. Now they're writing their own rule books and they're crossing all their T's. They're fashioning their people to all wear beggars' knees. If you want a clean drink of water, well, you must say pretty please. It's all a game. As we all just stand in line and justify these crimes done in our names. It seems to me authority and tyranny are both one and the same. Well, it's time to change the channel. It's time to set things right. Make them all rot with fear in their beds at night. Devour all their worthless souls and sacrificial right, just like we should. Of those who are to blame, and we'll stack them up like cordwood, watch them sizzle on the flames for good. Well, as we all just stand in line waiting for some kind of Robin Hood, our liberty will never be until our right to freedom is understood. Thank you.